I remember we kept trying to run gut protocols because, you know, you're having all these gut symptoms. You're having the bloating, you're having the gas, and you're just like, oh, it must be SIBO. It must be IBS. I need to take all these probiotics. I need to take these herbal compounds to fix my gut. And then it's like, or I could just remove all these things that I was having a hard time digesting, and I don't even need to run the protocol. So that
Yeah.
was the big thing, is like 80% of digestive symptoms, when you get rid of some of these really difficult to digest foods, or the foods really high in FODMAPs, they just go away. And you may not even have to do the gut protocol or the probiotics or the herbal things. The symptoms kind of just go by themselves. I mean, a lot of people I work with are like, right, what's this gut stack we're going to do? What supplements do I need to buy? And it's like, we just need to stop eating broccoli at every meal. Let's start there, and then we can get to the other, we can get to the other stuff down the road.
Yeah, I think so. What I find as well, and I think like as I've progressed on this journey, like for me, even when I eat enough, if I get very stressed, like particularly emotional stress, I get constipated. Like it just happens. And then I have to take some Cascara, and then when I deal with the emotional stress and everything's back to normal, poo starts going again. You know, and so many of these women, like they're just not eating enough. So like when they actually start, like you say, taking some of these harder to digest foods out, actually eating adequate calories, lowering stress, then all of a sudden they start to poo again. And I think that's another great thing about doing this is you start to understand your body. And, you know, for me, like if stress for me is like I get constipated and then I wake up at night. Like that's the signs for me that something's not right and I need to address something. And then for Craig, it's always digestion. He always gets constipated, and you start to learn these things and you don't freak out thinking, oh my God, I need to go and change everything. You're just like, oh, okay, all right, well, I need to just, whatever it is that you need to do to, you know, address the stress, and then things get better. So it's, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
We're sort of getting off
for
the
sure.
track of fasting, sorry.
Well, that's all right. And just to maybe close the loop, I mean, this is not to say that people don't have legitimate gut issues.
Yes, of course.
But if you do, as you're saying, Kitty, getting motility going, eating enough food, and as Mike was saying, not feeding this overgrowth, or not feeding the gut issue, so to speak. You know, getting yourself to a place where you can eat enough food that is nutrient dense, and that doesn't mean just micronutrients, right? Then we're thinking vegetables, but nutrients include carbohydrates and fats and protein, and getting enough in to get yourself to a better place, which tends to resolve the gut issues anyway. And that is the biggest thing, is getting our metabolism to a better place, which, as you're saying, when we're stressed, that is showing the opposite and showing exactly what happens in that situation. So that's always the first step. But then, yeah, sometimes we need to do some extra things to adjust the gut. But, you know, the most important thing is not to be constantly forcing ourselves, especially when we're bloated and gassy and constipated.
Totally. Yeah, and like you think, like the same with our clients, like 80 to 90% of them, they get great results just doing the basic stuff. And then there is that extra percentage of people that need to go further and do these things, but they still have to do the basics anyway, right? Like and then do the stuff. Because you guys probably see it too. Like women come to me and it's really interesting actually. This lady posted in our Facebook group. She came to us through Kitty Martone. You guys know Kitty Martone, hey? Yeah, Healthy Gut Girl. I love her. She did our program, and this lady was like, oh, you know, I've just been estrogen dominant for so fucking long, and I've done everything, the castor oil packs and all of the supplements and everything. And she's like, I've been in Kitty's program for 16 weeks and everything's balanced out now. No symptoms, got my blood. Like, you know, it's just so interesting that, and I'm not saying that those things aren't beneficial and that supplements aren't beneficial, but I think unless you're actually doing the foundations and the basics right, like actually eating enough, getting enough protein, balancing your blood sugar regularly, getting the right nutrients in, you know, sleep, sunshine, then add the supplements in, you know, then you'll get the best results from the supplements. So I think women can just get so lost in the weeds and like some of this stuff. And I always say that to them, like, it's actually so basic. Like you'll do our program and then at the end you'll think, why did I waste so much of my life? You know, like doing all of this crazy stuff when it's actually, you just have to do the basics consistently. Again, I'm not saying that supplements aren't good, beneficial, because we've got lots of different supplements in our cupboard, but you need to, I think, the basic foundations first.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
I think foundations are absolutely key, because a lot of people that I'll work with will come, they'll be like, oh, I work with this alternative health practitioner or this fancy doctor, and they give me this boatload of supplements. And again, it's not that supplements don't help, but it's, for example, I have a lady who I was working with. She has fatty liver, And so the doctor's giving her phosphatidylcholine, and he's giving her some B vitamins and all these different components to try to target the liver function. But then you throw the diet and chronometer, and she's doing like 200 grams of fat a day. And it's like, there's no amount of choline and B vitamins that's going to solve the 200 grams of fat on a 3,000 calorie diet for somebody who's like 60% body fat, and their actual requirements are significantly lower. So the ladies, she's eating in a huge surplus every day. Most of this is just coming from fat. This is not butter and lard. This is like whatever vegetable oil they're putting in at the restaurant and chips and whatnot. It's like the supplements aren't going to fix that alone. You have to first remove all of that, fix the dietary piece, and then you can start to put those things on board to help with the liver function and whatnot. So yeah, I think the foundation is what gets missed so many times, because everybody wants this fancy labs and this next generation of supplement and whatnot, and it's just like, well, look, that's fine, but let's sleep at night. Let's get adequate food during the day. Let's try to manage the stress appropriately, and maybe get some movement and things along these types of lines. And then, then we can start doing the supplements. So it's like, build that foundation first, get that bottom of the pyramid solid, and then you start stacking the other finer details on top. And then now you're starting to optimize this already really solid foundation. That's where people really, I think, start to see the changes, because there's only so many levers you can pull, right? After exercise and diet and stress management and sunlight and relationships and supplements, like the next tiers that those things go into is kind of like the surgery and the drugs and all this type of stuff. And none of us are working with those modalities. And I think for most situations, we'd say probably not an ideal way to go. So like, those are the things that we have to work with. So we have to pull these things. And I think a lot of people get stuck in the supplements and testing and all of this type of stuff instead of getting these other areas right first.
And that's what I say to women too. I'm like, they ask me, oh, do I need to get all this testing? And I said, I say to them, don't do it first. I'm like, do the foundation first. And then if you're still experiencing the issues and we don't know why, then maybe do the testing. I'm not saying that people should listen. Yeah, if you think something's wrong and you want to go to your doctor and get tested, go. But I just feel like you're right, like 80-90% of the stuff that women come to us with, the perimenopausal symptoms, menopausal symptoms, the sleep, the diet, just 80-90% of it gets resolved just by doing all of the basic stuff that we all teach people. And I think it's sort of, because the thing is, it's not quick and it's not sexy, and it's like,
yeah, it's not the newest NAD supplement, right? It's not like this new form of NAD that gets into your cells really fast. It's like, it's breakfast.
Yeah.
People are not like, oh, I'm so excited about breakfast.
And even when like women will say to me, like I was interviewing on my podcast, and this woman said to me, I would sort of get these blood sugar crashes, and like I just felt really shit. And once I actually like started tracking my food and balancing my meals with the right amount of protein and carbs, she's like, all that stuff just went away. She's like, I was amazed. And it's just so simple.
Yeah, and a lot of times, so like when I'll first start working with somebody, after I do the first like full analysis, that first call, I'll say, okay, I just want you to track chronometers. So when we come on our next call, we can see what you're doing with diet. We'll do an analysis there, and then we'll shift the diet. And I usually get an email from somebody like 4 or 5 days after, and they're just like, wow, I didn't know I was eating this much, or I didn't know I was eating this little, or I didn't know that I was this low on nutrients. It's like, yeah. This is why we're going to start here first. Because sometimes people are like, I want the protocol. Like, I want this supplement protocol. I want this specific thing. And it's just like, yes, but let's get this first and we can get to that thing. Because 9 times out of 10, we get this foundation solid. And then the specific problem that you're hunting for is often not that problem. Like, a lot of times you get the Lyme and the mold issues and heavy metal toxicity and all these symptoms that come with it. And it's not to say that those things don't exist, but it's like, if you're not doing all the foundation right, and like, then all the other things that you want to do after that are gonna have, I would venture to say, are gonna have a harder time working than if this stuff is organized. And you may find that, and I think a lot of people find that a large portion of their symptoms get minimized just by doing that. And then it's like, yeah, I don't have to go do all this chelation and all this type of stuff. Now I'm sleeping through the night, and my energy is good, my blood sugar is stable, so I think the foundation is key. And then with the lab piece, I agree with you 100%. It's the same thing I tell people is we know your labs aren't going to be that good right now. So let's put the foundation in place, and then we'll test your labs at that point so we can see is there something specific that you're missing? Is there something, is there some specific hormonal thing going on? Is there some specific nutrient deficiency? Is there something there? And that's usually if things aren't going well, and then it's like, okay, then let's check in and see. Let's see if there's something that's very specific that we missed, that we didn't solidify in the foundation. Because the lab testing is not cheap, right? A stool profile, like the hormonal testing, all of that type of stuff, that's the general stuff that I think people tend to see in the alternative sphere. That stuff is really expensive.
It's
I remember
super
when
expensive.
yeah, when I was sick, when I was sick and I was first like dealing with all this stuff, I remember I shelled out like $3,000 just to get the testing done. And then I had to pay the practitioner to read the testing. By the time I was done with all that, I could only afford one consultation. So then I was like, I got to figure it out myself. But at least I had the information. And then a lot of times, some of the stuff isn't so helpful because like, well, what do I exactly do with this? And again, some testing really is useful. But then sometimes it's just like, well, my prolactin's elevated, or I have this overgrowth in my gut or something. It's like, well, what do I do? What exactly do I do for that? And it's like probably foundational stuff.
Yeah.
That's probably like what you got to do first.
I interviewed Kitty on our podcast. I'm releasing it next week because she did one on her own podcast with Georgie. So basically, Georgie just did all the testing for her for free. You know how he does the hair testing and the toenails, and basically she tested before and after the program, and she was saying how, and because I think there's a few types of women, like there's women like her who, because she's small and under muscled and she just undereats, and then there's women who undereat and they binge eat or they eat too much, but she was a real undereater. And she's like, I went in and like tracked my food and I was eating like 1,100 calories a day, and she's like, I couldn't believe it. And just by we only got her up to 1,500 because for her that was a lot, and she's still working on getting it higher, and she's doing the strength training. But she said even just doing the testing with Georgie after the program, her levels were like really low, and now they were coming back up into the normal range because she's just actually eating enough and giving her body enough nutrients so your body can actually make the hormones. Like even her, like she's someone who's very knowledgeable. And she even said this on the podcast. She's like, this foundational stuff is life-changing.
If you enjoyed that clip, you'll definitely want to download the free Energy Balance Food Guide. The Energy Balance Food Guide will help you determine exactly what to eat to optimally support your metabolism and help you lose weight, improve your digestion, get amazing sleep, boost your energy, and so much more. The food guide makes it extremely easy to get started with a bioenergetic approach to optimizing your health. So head over to jfeldmanwellness.com/guide to download your free Energy Balance Food Guide.